Welcome to another episode of Fatherhood, Breaking the Toxic Cycle. And I'm here today to have a very special guest, and it's someone I used to work with. And he goes by the Instagram, Joel's got the keys.
That's me.
Awesome. And we're going to share a little bit of his story today and just his upbringing, and then when his son came into his life and how it impacted him. So this is going to be an exciting story for Generation Z. Are you Z? Or are you millennial?
I think I'm millennial. Yeah, I'm millennial. Yeah.
Awesome. So it's going to resonate with millennials and even Generation Z because there's a lot of kids having kids right now. And so with no further ado, welcome, Joel.
Thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
No, thank you. So I want to just introduce you to the audience, and maybe you can just share a little bit about who you are and your story.
Yeah. So my name is Joel. I go by Joel's Got the Keys, and I am 31 years old. I'm a father. My son is 7 years old. So I had him, I believe, when I was like 24. And I come from a pretty small town called Victorville, California. And yeah, that's I'm in real estate. Anything else?
Awesome. Absolutely. So you do some pretty exciting things in real estate because you deal with a whole different side of real estate.
Yeah.
And I think it's called wholesaling, or there's
Yeah.
a lot of different. But tell us a little bit about that. So how did you started in real estate and then you transitioned, and then I'm curious to find out just the name and where it came from, because that has a very special meaning. So yes.
Yeah, definitely. So I started out as a real estate agent in 2016. And then it wasn't really till 2019 that I really started getting up and going and starting to make sales and stuff like that. At the end of 2019, I felt really burnt out. I honestly didn't know why until 2 days ago. I found out why I felt so burnt out, but I felt burnt out. And so I just felt like I was looking for more. I wanted a way to make more income, essentially not having to work as hard. That might sound lazy. So I got into wholesale real estate, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. I love the investing side. And really what we do is we find off-market properties and we put those under contract, and then we sell those contracts to investors, and they pay us a fee called an assignment fee. And the cool thing about that is you can literally live anywhere in the world, work anywhere in the world. I have some friends that actually, they are from Denmark. They live in Denmark and they wholesale here in the United States. And so it's a virtual business. Whereas when you're a real estate agent, you actually have to be in the market. You have to go on appointments and meet people physically. And so, yeah, I just went all in on wholesale. Right now, I'd say my business is actually kind of a blend of both. I'm doing both right now, retail and wholesale. So that's where I'm at. And in 2020, I started my company. It's called Sold Home Offer. And the way that I came up with that name was I really was at this point where I had a mentor. I didn't really feel like I was in alignment with him and his lifestyle. So I was like, hey, I want to go out and do my own thing, and I want to make my own company. And I don't even remember where it came from, but it was almost like I was just sitting on my couch and it was just like a download. It just came to me. It was like sold. And I was like, that's cool. Okay. So I thought about it, and I just kept kind of like meditating on it, contemplating on it, and it just felt right. And I spelt it SOULD because I really wanted to have an approach of where we actually take care of people. And, a lot of the times wholesalers have a very bad reputation. There's like, if you go online, there's like stories of like people taking advantage of like grandma and giving her like a lowball offer. But we really try to take care of our people and offer them the best solution possible, whether that's giving them a cash offer, listing their house, or doing other creative strategies in real estate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's freaking pretty exciting to watch you have that transition.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, before we kind of dive into your childhood, how has, now you said you have a 6-year-old son?
7.
Seven.
He just turned
Okay.
7, yeah.
7. So going into real estate, because it takes a lot of time and it takes away from, family and children and so forth. How did you balance that? Because you have such a young child, and you're just transitioning into this new industry.
Yeah.
And how did that look like for you and spending time with your son and the pressures of knowing you're on commission and having to provide?
Yeah, so in the beginning, my parents really helped me out a lot. I kind of lived in 2 places at one time. So I had my own apartment in a city called Claremont, and then my son's mother lived in Victorville, or in Hesperia, city over. And so he would go back and forth with me and his mom, and my parents would really help me out a lot. So I didn't get to spend a lot of time with him. And that was one of the things when I got into wholesale, I was able to spend more time with him. But yeah, my parents really helped me out a lot with that.
Wow. So it was nice that you had the support of your parents because a lot of, fathers and even mothers at a young age don't have the support of their parents. So
Yeah,
that seems like it was probably a pivotal role for you
yeah,
to be able to help with the raising of your son.
yeah. My parents have been like super, super helpful. I don't think I would have been able to do it without them. I've gone through a lot of challenges, like having my son in the beginning was very difficult. So they definitely were able to help me with that.
Now, what about, I'm going to go backwards. What about your upbringing? So you grew up in a small town in Victorville,
Yes.
and which has exploded now, by the way.
Yeah, it's growing a lot.
And tell us a little bit about your upbringing, with your mother and father and just the type of life that you had. And
Yeah, so I grew up in Victorville, California, and I have a mother and father. They're still together till this day, so that's pretty cool. They were extremely supportive. They've always supported everything I've done. So my father, he has a job. He's not like a professional artist, but really he was an artist, and he was an incredible at drawing. Like he could draw like animals
wow.
and they look real. And so I would just watch my father growing up, and that was so inspirational for me. So at about 4 years old, I started drawing as well. And then I went on and I started like entering like art competitions and stuff like that. And, I'd get like first, second place, whatever. And so my parents were very supportive of me, and they saw that I was a creative person. The other thing too that my parents really did for me that I think was super helpful, I told my dad it was almost like they did an experiment, like A/B testing on me and my
Mm,
sister. So like with me, they wouldn't let me quit anything. Like I played soccer when I was a kid and I hated it. And the only reason why I would go to soccer is because they would give us oranges at the end of the game.
wait a minute. Okay, so this is powerful. So your parents would not let you quit anything. So whether it was a sport, whatever it was, once you started, you had to see it all the way through.
Yeah.
Okay, definitely expand on that because that's powerful right there for other parents that are maybe struggling because their children
Yeah.
start a sport and don't want to finish. So can you expand on that a little bit? Because that's a powerful nugget there.
Yeah. So basically, the negotiation that we came to when I was like 5 or 6 years old was that, okay, if you don't like soccer, we will let you stop playing soccer. You don't have to play soccer, but you're going to finish the season because you made a commitment.
Wow.
You're going to finish it. So that was the biggest blessing my parents ever gave me. And that was the foundation of me being an entrepreneur. Because I've gone through seasons where I've made a lot of money and then it's like I had to restart all over again. I had no money. So I've gone through that a few times. And the only reason why I keep going and I'm so focused on making it happen is because my parents never let me quit. So I've even transitioned that into my relationship with my son. We put him in Taekwondo, and there's these phases where he'll do good and he's excited about it. And he's like, oh, I love Taekwondo. And then there's others where he wants to quit. I remember one time specifically, he was really doing well and he was advancing. And the instructor saw that he had leadership ability. So he put him in the leadership class. And we went into the bathroom to change him. And it was just me and him. And he started crying. And he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I hate it. And like, he just would not go. And so when I talk to my son, I get down to his level. So like I got like on my knees and I just started talking to him like, eye to eye, man to man. And I was just like, hey, like you got to do this. You made a commitment. You said you're going to get your black belt. We're going all the way. Trust me, one day you're going to thank me because you're able to defend yourself and you're a full comprehensive man. You can, defend your family, your wife, your kids, your friends. So you're going to thank me one day. You got to see it through. And I just talked him through it. He got back out there. That was like a year ago. He's still doing it. And so, yeah, I got that from my parents.
That is awesome. Now I have to ask you this question because it really resonates is you chose to get down to his level.
Yeah.
Tell me about that because it's such a simple concept, but yet we forget to do that as parents because to our children, especially when they're so young,
Yeah.
we look like giants.
Yeah.
So how did you know to do that as such a young parent?
Well, I think I probably got that from my journey with plant medicine. A lot of my parenting comes from my experiences with plant medicine. We can get into that later. I've just had these visions where it's almost like I'm instructed on what I need to do. So I really understand that I do look like a giant, because I remember I thought my dad was like 15 feet tall when I was a kid, so I get down to my son's level because I feel like so many parents, they talk down to their kids and they don't talk, eye to eye. And for me personally, like my son, he's a mirror. So a lot of the things that he does, I can see like, oh, he gets that from me. And so I learn from him. I say like he's my mentor as much as I'm his mentor, and he's my guide as much as I'm his guide. So I look at him as an equal, not as necessarily I'm above him, even though I am instructing him and guiding him.
I love that, because I remember doing a post not too long ago about, as parents, we can learn from our children.
Yeah.
We're so quick to dismiss them. They go to school, they learn what's going on. They learn what's happening in the world, in the nation, global politics. And then they come and they want to share what they've learned. And we're so quick to dismiss them because we look at them as children, and that we as parents can't learn from them. So I love that you said that your son is your teacher.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Thank you.
So what I want to do now is, since you did open that door to plant medicine, let's talk about plant medicine, because, I've been on my journey for 3.5 years, and it's been life-changing for me and my relationships, family, and so forth. So how were you drawn to plant medicine, and what happened? Where were you at your life that the calling came for plant medicine?
Yeah. So I first heard about plant medicine, I think, right after high school. I was in a Buffalo Wild Wings. me and my friends went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and I think we had wings and beer. And my friend Corey, he started talking about this thing called DMT. And he started telling me about it, and he's like, "Oh, they do this DMT in the jungle," and then we were like, "Would you ever do DMT? Would you ever do ayahuasca?" And I remember my friend, he was like, "Nah, maybe if I was like 40 and having like a midlife crisis or something, like if I'm not happy, I'll probably do ayahuasca." I was like, "Oh," I said, "I'd probably do it. Honestly, that sounds really cool." Fast forward a few years, I met this friend because I make music, and he was kind of like my teacher and my mentor. And we had this opportunity where he actually had some DMT. And I was in a very dark place at that point in my life. I had just started reading Albert Camus, and I really connected with the idea of nihilism. But really, nihilism is a very depressing philosophy. So I started thinking like there's no consequences in life, that I really like there's really no meaning to life. And I grew up Christian. I really started leaning more into atheism, where like I was contemplating atheism. It didn't feel right inside of me though, but I was intellectually becoming atheist, but it didn't intuitively feel right to me. And so I did DMT one night, and it just absolutely changed my life. Because I don't know, I went somewhere, and it was like there was this red tunnel, and I just remember going down the tunnel, and it's like I was in this infinite ocean of love, and it was just pure love. It absolutely changed my life in 8 minutes. Fast forward a few years, just kind of going up and down. I got into this relationship with someone, and she was like a very spiritual person, but we ended up breaking up, and it absolutely like devastated me. And I remember at that point in time, she had really opened me up to more like spiritual ideas and concepts. So we had started talking about plant medicine, and I remember telling her one night, like, I don't know, I have this feeling inside of me that like, I'm going to do ayahuasca soon. I don't know why. I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to do it. I just feel like it's going to happen. And then like probably within 6 months, the opportunity presented itself to me. I went to this event, and there was someone there, one of my mentors. And he's like, "Oh, we're actually having a ceremony this weekend." He's like, "Do you want to come?" I was like, yeah, sure." And then I talked to I talked to Danny Morell, and because he had just got back from his ceremony and his journey, and he was like, "Yeah, you should definitely do it." And like, this is kind of my experience. And so he really opened me up and made me feel comfortable doing it, because I was so scared. And I just looked at him, and I was like, he actually looks better than before. So I was like, okay, I'll try that. So that's how I got into it.
Wow. And
Yeah.
tell me about, your first experience with ayahuasca is always one of your most profound.
Yeah,
So
really.
tell me about the awakening that happened, and did you have your ego death? And how did that now start your full journey
Yeah.
into an awakening.
Yeah, that's you said something, but when we were off camera, it was so funny because you're like, yeah, you were like this really rambunctious, and then you were just like calm, and that was that first ayahuasca experience. Because what ayahuasca showed me in that first experience was sometimes, and I still struggle with it. It's something I'm still working on. It's like I like get to a higher level and I like fall, so I'm working through it, right? But sometimes I talk too much. Sometimes it's you can actually say more by being silent. And so that's why I'm a lot more calm now than I used to be. And I think that was just me kind of transitioning from being a boy. That was my like my inner child. Because when I watch my son, he's like, hey, like jumping around dancing. Where now I'm like more calm and I know how to kind of manage my energy better. But I definitely had an ego death. I just saw like so many times where I would maybe say something to like my parents, or I like to make fun of my mom because she's like a very anxious person. And I inherited that, unfortunately. And so sometimes like I'll mess around with her or joke with her. But what ayahuasca showed me was that when I do that, I'm triggering her anxiety and I'm causing her stress. So like I'm actually bringing illness upon her, even though I don't have an ill intent. So I've learned to not joke with her as much to where I put her in a stressful state. So I still joke with her, but as much as I used to, because I don't think that was good for her health because she doesn't manage stress very well. So that was something that I learned from ayahuasca. And yeah, I just learned like, I don't know, you get so deep in your ego, even like with road rage. It's like this person cuts you off and you just want to like run them off the road. It's like, you don't have to do that. There is a better way to handle things. And when you give into that anger and that rage, that is your ego consuming you, but you can transcend that.
Wow. You said something that really resonated, and I want to tie it into a relationship with, just say, a father. It can be a mother, father, but just a father and their child, because you said you would make fun of your mom just because she was anxious, just to kind of trigger her because it was funny. But how often do we do that with our kids?
Yeah.
And I remember, my daughters would say, "Oh, we're princesses." I said, "No, you're not a princess. You're like a toad." But I didn't realize that I was leaving this like lasting impression. So how do you correlate that now with plant medicine? And you saw the connection, and then with your son.
That's a great question. So for example, my son is a stud and a lot of girls like him, but
Mhm.
he's just like, he's not into that at all right now. Like he just wants to play Pokemon. And so I like when I go pick him up from school, or his mom will tell me stories like girls really like my son. So, there is this one girl in particular that he seems more fond of, and like he's more open to talking about it and stuff. So we'll always like make fun of him. And I could tell that it bothers him. So one day I went to him and I was like, "Hey, when we talk about her, does that bother you? Like, how does that make you feel?" And he's like, "No, I really don't like that. It bothers me." And so I was like, "Okay, well then I won't make fun of you anymore. I'll stop. I'm sorry." And so, I would catch myself every once in a while slipping up, but I've really toned down the amount of making fun of him that I would, because even though it's like, hey, it's cool, girls like you, like he doesn't like that. So I backed off. And then I told his mom too, because like she would still like make fun of him. I'd say, hey, like he doesn't like that. So now she's like toned it down too.
Nice.
Yeah.
So through your journey, you're also teaching
Yeah.
his mom
Yeah.
how to interact with your son and not causes damage, because it does cause damage,
Yeah.
even the joking.
Yeah.
Now, when you were in ceremony with plant medicine, was there any healing with your relationship with your mother and father? Like, how was your experience growing up? And then did plant medicine show you anything that you needed to come full circle to heal?
I think sometimes it could even just be like the moments leading up to plant, like the actual ceremony. They say you're like already in ceremony once you make the commitment. So I had like this conversation with the shaman prior to sitting with the medicine. And this was my last ceremony. This was like it's over a year ago. And I just said, I see like my parents do certain things that they do, and it really bothers me. I don't like that. And so like it makes it hard for me at that point in my life. It made it hard for me to like be around them. I wouldn't want to come around anymore. I just kind of stay in my cave. And so he said, you don't want to judge your parents. He said, if you think that by judging them or by telling them this is how you need to do it or this is how you need to be, if you think that that's going to make them be the version them that you think they need to be. It's not. He said the way that you do that and that you really have change and make change is by being a living example and not by being judgmental. And so for me, again, growing up Christian, I felt like that was very like Christ-like. It was like non-judgmental, just giving them love, being a living example. And he told me a story about him and his father. His father actually was part of a mafia lineage, and he's Italian, and they had done some really bad things throughout their history. And he's like the first one in his family to break that cycle of being in the mafia. And he said, my father was like a raging alcoholic. He had done a lot of criminal activity, and I would find myself judging him as well. And so I had to go through that journey of just not judging him. And he's like, it was amazing. Just the moment I stopped, the one day he just stopped drinking, and he hasn't drank in years. Like, I just stopped trying to impose my will upon him. I don't know where I was going with that.
No, you're good. Let me ask you a question, because you talk about being judgmental and towards your parents. What about with your son? And not only your son, but what about with his mother?
Oh, yeah.
Because what lessons were given, because how we treat, especially when we're not together with their mother, how we treat them does affect our children. So was there a lesson there for how you treated your son? Because I know I judged my daughters in the past, and I was always comparing them to, my friends' kids and so forth. And well, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you getting better grades? And more damage that I was doing, not realizing I was just trying to get them to step up.
Yeah. I think that's something with my son I didn't really struggle with as much in the beginning. It's funny though, because over time, as he gets older, because he's still so young, as he gets older, I find myself, and a lot of the things that I talk about are only happening in my mind. I'm not actually manifesting them out into reality. So like, I'll find myself judging him in my head, or I might catch myself slip up every once in a while where like he'll want to show me like some Pokemon card, and I'm like, well, wait, you were doing your homework. Like, like do this. And so I catch myself. So I'm really working through that still. It's not something that I've mastered, but I always go back to that conversation that I had with the shaman, and that really guides me with the relationship that I have with my parents and my son. And I think even too, just having this conversation right now, I'm going to definitely have more awareness of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, this question has just been one that's been calling me to ask, other fathers is, do you show emotions in front of your son? And do you cry in front of him?
I don't know if I've ever cried in front of my son. I'm definitely vulnerable with him though. Like, I tell him if I'm going through something. He doesn't fully understand it, but for me, I like to show him when I'm going through something difficult. The reason why is because I want to show him that, yes, I'm going through something difficult, but I'm doing my best to get through that situation, and you're going to see how I handle it. I'm going to manage my emotions properly. And managing my emotions properly is not me being necessarily stoic and not having any type of emotion. It's like, it's me just working through it with grace, not, exploding or anything like that. And sometimes I do catch myself. That's why meditation is very big for me. If I don't meditate, I turn into like a different person. I have to meditate every day. And yeah, so I forgot where we're going with that. I'm sorry.
No, we're good. You just opened up something that I definitely saw on your Instagram feed that I wanted to expand on. Is I saw you showing him meditation and breath work.
Oh yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I saw him sitting there participating. So tell me about that. Like, what just called you to say, hey, we're going to do this meditation and breath work?
Before I get into that, going back to the plant medicine, because it ties it. So when I was on plant medicine, I had the last ceremony I was in, it was like so beautiful. I had this vision of me, and I was really old. I was like near my death. And my son was on the side of my bed, or like I was like ill, or I was going through something really difficult. And he was just like, oh, come on, Dad, you got this. You got this. And it was like he was coaching me. And so I always like kind of go back to that. And I like to run. So like I'll run like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 miles. I've ran marathons and stuff like that, half marathons, and I've run one marathon. And just like that vision keeps coming to me, like he's guiding me, like he is my guide. It's like a future version of him. But I had that vision of us, and I've had other visions on plant medicine where it shows me what I need to do with my son, like get on your knees and talk to him eye to eye, ask him questions, talk to him in a certain tonality, and show him breath work. And so when I had that vision, I remember I put it off for so long, like probably like a year, like I'm not going to meditate with him. And then one day I just got called to meditate with him. I said, let's try breath work. So I sat with him, and I remember the first time I sat with him. Oh, I actually did cry. I lied. Okay, so he was like doing the breath work, and I was guiding him. That video you saw was like the second time, but the first time, like I was guiding him through the breath work, and I remember it was weird. It felt like my head opened up, like the top of my crown chakra, and it just felt like this like light or like this energy descended into my body, and it felt like I embodied like a higher version of myself, and it said, "This is what I've been telling you to do. You finally did it. You're finally stepping into your higher self and becoming the father that you're supposed to be, that we've been telling you need to be." And so I literally just started crying. And so, yeah, I've been teaching him breath work. And a lot of times he doesn't want to do it. I have to like push him, like, come on, let's do it. Let's do it. And then he'll do it. And then the other day, and we were in the car, and he's like, hey, can you put on a song with like no words? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then so I look in the back of the car, and he's like doing breath work in the back of the car.
Wow.
But yeah, I taught him that because it helps you manage your emotions, and it helps you. I've had a lot of great downloads from breath work.
I saw something on the Instagram post that put some tears in my eyes. And now hearing that plant medicine showed you a lot of lessons on parenting. The one thing that blew my mind this morning when I saw it was you taking your son to go see a yacht.
Oh, yeah.
And then talking about manifesting and how some people, they see something they want, but it's just a dream that they're never going to achieve. And you coached your son on, and you told him, come and look, this is going to be our yacht one day. But can you expand on that? Because that's powerful.
Yeah. So I think certain people, everyone has their own life path, right? I think for me, when I was a kid, I always had really big visions, and I had no limitation on my mindset. It wasn't until I got older that people started beating me down into believing like I have to go and get a 9 to 5. I'm only going to make $50,000 a year. I can't have all the things I want. Because this sounds kind of funny, but growing up, like I would come home from school and I would just turn on like BET or like MTV, and I would watch the rap videos. And like for me, like Puff Daddy was like, I don't know, like he was like my idol, and like I would just see him on the yacht with the Ferraris and stuff, and I liked that. I know like some people say that's materialistic. It just naturally attracted me as a kid, and so I always like thought really big. And even when I was a kid, like I would have my mom drive, like we would drive by these mansions on our way to church, and I would just imagine myself owning a house like that one day. So I've always been this way. And so with my son, I tell him that like, hey, like anything that you want in the world, you can have. Like the only limitations that you have are the ones you place on yourself. I think Napoleon Hill said something like that. And so, yeah, I'll take him to like go see yachts, or I'll take him to, we'll go to open houses. Like we went to this open house, and he loves waterfalls. And there's this $10 million house for sale in Laguna Beach. It's been on the market forever. If you expire, hit me up. Just kidding. And I took him because as a waterfall when you walk into the house, and I was like, hey, like, you can have something like this one day. And I always tell him like, I'm building my business. I'm working on our business. And one day we're going to own a house right here on the beach in Laguna Beach. And that's my goal. And that's what we're going to do. So I tell him that because maybe he doesn't want to be an entrepreneur. Maybe he doesn't want to own a yacht. Maybe he doesn't like those things, but I want him to pursue his dreams and do anything that he possibly sets his mind to. Because that's what my parents always told me I could do. They always said, hey, you can do it. The difference between me and my parents, though, is like they didn't have access to the internet. So they did all they knew to get by. Like my parents many times had 2 jobs at one time, but they would always tell me like, you can do it, you can do it. So for me, I don't just want to tell him he can do it. I want to be a living example of that. And that's what I do by, having my own business and stuff like that.
Wow. So I saw a post. I was on the treadmill and I almost fell. And it had to do with give more money to your children's mom.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. That hit me. Because at first I was like, what? Because, especially when you're not in relationship together, you want to give the minimum or just what's expected by the court. So I'm just curious to have you dive a little bit deeper into why you feel that a man that's not with their mother should give more money. And I love the concept and the perspective you put on. So I would love for you to share.
Yeah. So when I first had to pay child support, I was absolutely opposed to it. I was in the victim role, world's against me. At that time, I was working at Starbucks. I was still in college. I didn't make a lot of money. I maybe made like $12,000 a year. So it was a lot. Like, it was like, man, why do I have to do this? I'm not making anything. We have 50-50 custody. Why do I have to pay? I was mad. Um, Fast forward, getting into real estate, I had some like really good mentors. And I just remember my broker at the time, Danny Morell, he would talk about how you need to support, you know, the mother. He's like, there's some of you guys in here, like, you don't want to pay child support. You don't want to support your mother. He's like, you need to do that. You're basically like blocking the flow of abundance to you. And so when he said that, I was just like, man, that's whack. and then, and then I sat with it for years, for literally years. And I think it was those journeys through plant medicine and just even now, like I just receive downloads and thoughts and I'm always contemplating and meditating. It just came to me one day, like, so what happened was I was paying the bare minimum of child support for years. And what happened was this actually happened to me like last year. So not that long ago. I was late on my child support payment. And when you're like literally a day late, your real estate license is gone. Your driver's license is gone. And so I had listings. I had like it was like a 1.6 or $1.8 million listing in Los Angeles. I had a few listings at the time. My wholesale business wasn't affected, but my retail business was. So I had, you know, a lot of money on the line, and I had to give my listings away to other agents. And you know what was the worst part was that because I didn't make that payment on time, I have a team, and some of my team generated those deals, but they were under me. So like my team lost out on money too. So like my stupidity cost my whole team. And so going through that process, I learned a lot. I got my license reinstated, and then I basically came to an agreement with her. And I said, hey, look, I'm a very honest person, and I'm going to tell you this, like, if we can just like get out of the court system, I will pay you more money. And I said, this is how much I can pay you right now, and I'm going to continue to pay you more as my income goes up. So for me, my goal is the more money that I make is to pay my son's mother more money. So like, it's say I'm making $10,000 a month, then I need to pay her at least $1,000. It's like 10% of my income for me. So I want to pay her at least 10% of my income. And the reason why that is because I want her to have a good life. I want her to live in a nice place. I want her to feel comfortable. I want her to be relaxed and at ease. I don't want her to have to worry about money, because the better mindset that she's in, the better mother that she can be to my son. Because money is like the dumbest thing to stress out about. And so many of our problems are caused by a lack of money. So if I can help with that, she can really like work on herself more and just be a better person herself. And the better person she is, the better environment she can provide for my son. So I think as a man, especially as an entrepreneur, that you don't have a cap on your income. If you are not with your son's mother, you should aim to make more money to give them more money.
So your mindset now is that if your son's mother is in a better place mentally, financially, that's going to provide for a better life for your son.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And I applaud you for that, because most men don't approach it from that perspective. They approach it from perspective, I'm only going to give you the bare minimum. And a lot of fathers hide their money when they're having it. They're getting ordered to pay child support, and they, you know, especially in real estate, they'll do deals on their other people's licenses, and they're
It's crazy.
It happens. But I love the correlation that as long as your son's mom is in a better place, even though you're not together, it's going to impact your son's well-being. Wow. You know, I also saw something about Christmas.
Mm.
And years ago when you were struggling and it was Christmas time and you went to buy presents for your son and you go to pay and the card declines. And I resonate with that story because that happened to me also in 2002. So can you share that moment?
Yeah, I think that was 2018. I think that year I did like 3 sales, And that was the year that I went to a new brokerage and they really started teaching me sales skills. So I was like dedicated my life to just learning sales. But I didn't have a lot of money at the time, so I was driving Uber and Lyft. And something happened where I had done my shift and I had pressed the button for them to pay me my money, and there was like a hold on the account or something, so the money wasn't going to be processed for a few days. So I went on Christmas Eve to buy my son presents, and my card was declined, and there was like a line of people behind me, and so I'm there at the front of the line, and I had all these toys. It was like $130 or something in toys, and yeah, she said, "Oh, your card didn't go through, it wasn't approved." And I didn't have a credit card. I didn't have anything. So I just stepped aside and I called my mother, and she was in like the city over, and I said, "Hey, I was buying, these presents for Christmas, and my card got declined, and honestly, like, it's kind of embarrassing. I don't feel like a man right now, but can you just can you buy them for me for my son?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." So she drove across town to the next city over, which is Apple Valley. And she went in there and she bought the toys for him. And I remember I went in my car, and I wish I would have kept the video, but I recorded a video of like how I felt in that moment. And I just felt worthless. I felt like I wasn't a man. I think that was a moment that I'm obsessed with, this idea of like being a provider. I think that's also too why I want to give more in child support, because I feel like I need to provide for everyone in my circle. And so I want to make more money to provide opportunities, not just for my family, but even for my friends that like have talent. Like, I want to invest in my friends. So yeah, I just felt like I need to be a provider, and I just felt like I wasn't that in that moment. But that moment got me so fired up because it hurt me so bad that the next year I was able to really turn my business around, and I took like 15 listings the next year. So I went from 3 sales to 15 listings, and I think I had like 20 clients that year. I didn't close all of the deals, but it was a huge, massive growth. And it was because of that moment that just really sucked.
It was something that needed to happen
Yeah.
to shift your mindset to now never see yourself in that position again.
Yeah.
Wow. Let me ask you about your spiritual numbers 111. Tell me about that. And how does that resonate with
That for me, I started seeing that number a long time ago, and I didn't really know what it meant. I just started noticing these coincidences, and I would notice it a lot with numbers. And so at that time, I didn't have the community that I have now, and I thought I was crazy. But I'm a very open-minded person. So I was like, okay, there's something here. I'm observing something. I don't know what it is. It seems to have some sort of a meaning. And so I started talking to my friend about it, the one that I did DMT with. And he's like studied every religion. He's a very intelligent person. And so he's like, "Oh, that's a thing called synchronicity." And I said, "Oh, synchronicity. Okay." And then he started telling me about like numerology and stuff like that. And so what I've noticed for me personally is I see this number 111. It basically reminds me that I'm on the right path. Even when something's difficult, it'll appear. Oh, I want to show you something actually. Can I pull out my phone?
Absolutely.
I saw this on the way here, and I took this picture for you because it just happened to appear. So I saw this on the way.
Wow. License plate with the ending 111.
Yeah, so like what I would notice is when I first got into real estate, I would maybe go to a listing and like the number would be like in the tax record. Or I remember I was on one listing appointment. It was one of the first listings I ever took. And she's like, "Oh yeah, so like we upgraded the house and it has this T111 wood." And I didn't know what that was, but I was like, "There's that number again." It's like, I must be doing the right thing. And then some, like I took my first $1 million listing off of the 111 highway. And so my grandparents are from Coachella, and it's right off the 111 highway. And I have a very deep spiritual connection to my grandparents, especially my grandfather. Even though he's no longer physically with us, he's still here. I feel like I talk to him quite often, honestly. I think I talk to my grandfather more than I talk to my own parents. And so, yeah, every time I see that number, I know that I'm on the right path. I was going through something difficult recently, and I just kind of like said to God, I was just like, "You know what? If I'm going to make it through this situation, can you just give me a sign?" And I'm telling you, like literally within like a minute, two cars with that license plate, 111, 111. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And so I just started noticing that. And honestly, a book that really opened my mind, even though it's a fictional story, when I read it, I was like, that's my life. I am that guy. It was The Alchemist. I
Ah,
felt like I was that kid in the book. And that really opened me up more to the idea of synchronicities and how there are these meaningful coincidences that, it's like the universe's way of communicating with us.
wow. So let me go backwards in time. And that moment when you're younger, you're struggling, and now you find out that you're going to be a father, and just the emotions of, my gosh, I don't even have my shit together. Can I say that shit
Yeah, yeah.
together?
It's your
And
podcast.
now, and what am I going to do? Because that's one of the biggest fears, that we all face, especially being young parents, is there's never a right time. There's never a right time.
I feel like what I'm going to say right now, I think it's going to help someone. And I hope it does. I really do. When I found out I was going to have a kid, I was absolutely terrified. Again, because I grew up Christian. And growing up Christian, you're not supposed to have premarital sex. So for me, had so much guilt and shame. And because my family, they run a church. So at the time, I had two families, and they both ran two churches in the high desert where I'm from. And so my whole family runs churches, and none of my cousins have had children out of wedlock. I'm sure they were, knocking boots, but they didn't have kids. And so for me, I was like the first one. Now, I didn't find out till later that like some of my aunts and stuff like families hide things under the rug, but I didn't know at the time. So I was so scared, and I felt like I was bringing so much shame to my family, and I was letting my parents down. I was in college at the time, and all I wanted to do was finish. I was in like my last year of college. I just wanted to finish and go and get a job in marketing. And I also wanted to pursue my music career, and I didn't want a kid because I was like, this is going to slow me down. It's going to stop me. But it was really like, and I don't have a problem with religion, but it was really that upbringing that I had that brought so much fear upon me. And so I have some friends that they're from different cultures. They're maybe from Asia or Africa, and they have different ways and beliefs or the Middle East, and they have different ways of going about things. And a lot of it ties to either religion or culture, and a lot of that is rooted in religion. And so I know, like, I've had conversations with some of my friends, they're like, yeah, like if I ever had a kid, like I'd probably have an abortion. I even remember I had a friend, like, he ended up having a miscarriage, but it was like he threw a party when he had a miscarriage.
What?
Yeah, like everyone like came over, like got drinks and stuff, like, hey, cool, like thank God, because his father was a pastor. He was so scared. And so his girlfriend at the time was devastated, but he was like, I dodged a bullet. But there's so many people, I feel like, especially in those communities, whether it's like from certain parts of the world or certain religions, like they literally would rather have an abortion than have a child because of the guilt and the shame, the way that their parents are going to treat them. Like I've even seen people where their parents kick them out of the house. And so I felt that fear, I felt it heavy. And so for me, like I really was conflicted, and I did not know what to do. And I think like, I don't know, it was like my son's mother that was just like, no, we're doing this. We're having a kid. I don't care what you say. I'm doing this. I don't need you. I'm doing it with or without you. And so like her whole pregnancy, I wasn't even around. I went off and I did my own thing. The first time I went on a plane, I started traveling. I started living life more. And by the end of when she was about to have him, I think it was like on New Year's. Yeah, New Year's. Well, she had him in June, so it was like halfway there. I don't know. I had been drinking with my friends or whatever, and I was like feeling the drink, and I was like, hey, I want to be a father. I'm going to be there for him, and all this and that. And she just like,
You're drunk texting.
yeah, she's like, you're a clown. Like, she didn't tell me that, but I could tell. And so when I actually had my son, I hurt her so bad that, and I hope people don't take this the wrong way, Because so when I posted that video about the child support, she got so much hate message. I don't even know how people found out who she is. People started DMing her like terrible messages that she's like a gold digger and she's just money hungry. When that was me, something I wanted to do. So please don't come after. But yeah, like I wasn't able to see my son for like a few months. Like I wasn't even there when he was born, and that really hurt me because I did want to be there. My best friend just had a kid, and like I don't even know what that's like. You know what he's going through, but I hurt her so bad that she didn't want me around. So I don't blame her for that. But it was like really, it was just difficult. And I'm so glad that, she didn't listen to me. Something else that I want to say real quick is like, so when I was a teenager and I started like going through like puberty, I started feeling like sexual emotions. I used to have these dreams that I would lose my virginity. And I would wake up and I'd be like, oh God, thank God.
Because you were in
Yeah,
this
yeah. I'm like,
religious.
okay, I'm still a virgin. Thank God. And so I was the opposite of my friends. They're like, I lost my virginity. I'm like, no, I don't want to. And so, but I would have these dreams. I would be in the desert and I would be walking through the desert and I would have a son. I'm trying not to cry because it was so profound. I would have these dreams and it was like I was seeing the future. And I would have a son. I didn't know his name. And I just remember like the sunlight hitting my face. I was walking through the desert. I was just teaching him and guiding him. And I was like, man, like, I don't know why I keep having these dreams. I was only like 15. I had never had sex at the time. I didn't lose my virginity until I was like 20. And so I didn't know why I was having these dreams. And then when I found out I was having him, and it was like that pivotal moment where we really had to decide, like, are we going to have a kid or not? I had a dream like the night before, that pivotal moment. And like this angel came to me in a dream and it like took me back to my, sorry, this is like crazy because like I've had visions like this on ayahuasca too. And it's like, it's crazy. But it took me back to those dreams and I was like reliving that dream. And it was like, you're supposed to have this. Because you were placed here to do something great. And you've always felt that since you were a kid. And unless you have this kid, you're not going to be able to manifest your full potential. You have to do this. As scared as you are.
No, it's beautiful. It's something we all struggle as young fathers.
And so I had that dream the night before, and the next day I felt so conflicted because I was like, I don't know what to do. I felt like I was letting my whole family down. And this is the funny thing. When I told my family, they didn't even care. They were 100% supportive of me.
Wow.
And I just, like I'm crying right now. I cried to my dad. I feel like I'll let you know. They were so supportive of me. And they've helped both of me and her out so much. And I thank her for her strength. Because if it wasn't for her, I don't know where I would be, right? I don't know what my life would look like. I wouldn't have been into real estate. I used to drink a lot. I'd probably just be drinking all the time. So, yeah, man, I don't know, those dreams, it was like prophetic. And I've had so many experiences on ayahuasca too, where it's like, it'll take me back and I'm reliving dreams from my childhood. It's weird, man. I don't understand. It's like you go into different dimensions. But yeah.
Wow. The birth of your son now shifted the trajectory of your life forever. And it took the strength of his mother to block you from that experience. Then how did you finally show up? Like, how did she finally bring down that wall when you hurt her so much, emotionally and psychologically, to allow you? Then what did it look like the first time you saw him?
So the first time I saw him, it was actually really awkward. So the way that this happened was I had to, I was at this point where I had felt that I had hurt her so much that I didn't again, I didn't have money at the time. So I said my parents really helped me out. They actually paid for me to get an attorney, and I had to go to court to get custody of him, or to get partial custody. And so the court granted me limited visitation to see my son. And so the first time, when she got served the papers, she also got an attorney. And so the first time that I ever saw my son was so our attorneys had offices in the same building.
Wow.
She was walking out of the office. She just met with her attorney, and I was going to meet my attorney. And we walked past each other, and we hadn't talked in like months. And I saw my son, and I don't know, I was like so shocked that I didn't even like realize it was him. I was just like, and I just said, "Oh, hey," and she's like, "Hey," and then we just walked. I went to see my attorney. She went to see hers. And then after that, like that process of like the visitation and stuff, it was really rough in the beginning. Like a lot of arguments. Um, it was just very difficult. How and when it started turning around, I think it was just through like us exchanging him more. And then,
And let me just because I want to set the question up because this is powerful right here. How did you start to shift that relationship from negative and toxic, her not wanting to have anything to do with you, not wanting to have to do with your son, and then start the improvement? So sorry, now go ahead.
yeah, I think that it was, when was that? When did that happen? 2016. I think so we were just exchanging him back and forth, and I think we were getting more like tolerable of one another. And then we would kind of like go out here and there, and like almost like we were kind of dating again, like off and on again, but we still weren't really in a good place. I think what really changed things for us, and we still sometimes have our qualms and our differences, right? I'm still working through that, but it's improved. It's like a night and day difference. I really think that it was the plant medicine for me. And I know for everyone, that's like not everyone's path, but for me, it truly changed my life, and it's made me a better father.
And how's your relationship now with your son's mom?
For the most part, we get along pretty well. I think something that I'm still working on is kind of like how I said, like I would, maybe make fun of my mom, or like that's like the child essence inside of me. I think sometimes I say things that are triggering, uh, and I don't know why I do that. So that's something that I've been working on, and that I'm currently working through. And I really go back to those, like that first ceremony where the medicine was saying, hey, sometimes you got to say less. And so I'm working through that, because I have to ask myself, like, are my words really like, are they helping? Like, how are they serving me and her, or are they hurting us? So that's something that I'm still working through, because I think like my whole life, it's a really bad habit that I've had of kind of just being an instigator. Like my whole family says like, oh, you're an instigator, because I like to stir the pot. And I think like, I don't know if it sounds kind of like sickening. I love psychology so much. I'm actually going to go back to school for psychology one day. Like that's my goal. I want to like get my doctorates in psychology.
So what's the date? What date? Let's put a date on it.
I plan on doing that in my 40s. And the reason why is because I really want to establish my business, and I don't want to have to worry about my business. It's something I just want to do because I want to do it, and my business is already running for me. So I want to spend my whole 30s just building my business. So I want to do that in my 40s. And I want to study like consciousness and stuff. But with the psychology, I think I like to instigate, because I like to see how do people react and respond. And if I say this or if I say that, it really is like pushing buttons, And so I have to learn to stop doing that. But that's something I struggle with.
Wow.
I'm being very vulnerable, guys.
No, this is powerful. This is powerful. Is there anything before we start to wrap it up? This has been a beautiful podcast, because it just covered such an area of different subjects, and just and especially how plant medicine opened you up on how to touch to love and heal. but is there anything that you'd like to cover as we're starting to wrap up? Because before we finish, I want you to grace us with your music.
Oh, man.
Absolutely, because you are an artist also.
Thank
and
you.
I started watching your videos. Pretty cool.
Thank you.
So, but before we get to that and close it out, anything else, any other, messages you can share for young fathers that are on their journey towards healing the relationship with their son or daughter's mother, and just best practices that you could bring home to us?
Yeah, I would say two things. I would say number one, and I feel like this is for, I like to say for the kids, but it doesn't necessarily have to be for the kids. Like, you got to realize that if you're going to have a child, it is extremely terrifying. And there is a lot of, you might feel pressure from the outside world, and you're going to get these false narratives. And this is one of the number one that I've heard my friends say is, I have a friend and she's a doctor now, but she used to like talk about, if I were to have a kid, like I'm not financially ready, I'm not in the right position. Being financially ready is an illusion. It's a lie. You don't have to be financially ready. You will figure out a way to do it. And when you say I'm not financially ready, you are literally putting a limitation on yourself. You are all powerful. You can do anything that you set your mind to, because the very force that created this universe that we live in lives inside of you. You are that experiencing itself. And when you realize that, it doesn't matter the challenge that's placed in front of you. And see, I didn't know this one at the time, but the challenge that's placed in front of you, you can make it through it. And that challenge, that thing that's so difficult and so daunting, it's a gift. As much as it sucks and you got to go through it and figure it out, and maybe you're not getting along with the other person, the mother, the father, you can get through it. And you're going to learn something through that if you handle it with grace and you understand that life, I got this from Tony Robbins, is happening for you, not to you. So I would say that's the biggest lesson. Like, this is happening for you to be the person that you need to be. It was all designed by purpose. And secondarily, the second thing I would say is, what was I going to say? Oh, stop the games. A lot of the times when people have kids, just stop the games. You're trying to get back at the father. You're trying to get back at the mother. Stop it. It's about the kid. It's not about me getting back at her getting back at me. It's about what is best for this kid. Like, how are we going to raise it to have, have emotional intelligence? How are we going to raise it to do well in school, to just be a good person? It doesn't matter. The games, they got to stop. Like, it's not worth it, guys.
Wow. Stop the games. So profound. So such simple concepts, but yet how they just have such dire shifts in the relationship. You said something that really resonated with me. And I remember, one of my brothers that I journeyed with, and it's one of my good friend's brother that passed away. His name was Mitch Asa. And he went through his struggles and found his enlightenment in his final years, and just passed away last year. But I remember being in an ayahuasca ceremony with him in Peru, and in the middle of ceremony, he just started yelling, "Oh my gosh, it's a gift! It's a gift! Everything's a gift! The good, the bad,
Beautiful.
the highs, the lows, it's all a gift." And he had just this explosion of emotions, and just realized that no matter what life throws at you, it's all a gift. And you just bringing that up about a gift just really brought back a flood of emotions of Mitch. And he was a beautiful singer, a beautiful soul. And he was actually on American Idol.
Oh, how cool.
Season 2, I believe, or 4, one of those. But such a beautiful soul. But just that always stuck with me is, to me, everything's a gift. It's a gift.
That's incredible.
Oh my gosh, this has been amazing. Now, I want to hear a song. Do we need to put an instrumental? Is there something we can pull up? Or you want to do some a cappella? But I just think that the audience should be graced with a little bit of
trying to think.
Your singing abilities, if you're okay with that.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if you're going to cut this out or if this is going to stay in there, but I have this thing, right? So I'm learning a lot about myself through my music. And what I'm learning is, like, I don't know. I've always, my whole life, I get performance anxiety. So, like, I'm really good at something, and then when I get put on the spot, like, I'll forget. I remember even one time, because I used to, like, actually perform and stuff. Like, one time I, like, completely forgot my lyrics on stage. It was terrible. and then I just like started freestyling or something. But let's see. I said all that to say, like, I'm trying to think of like a song that I could rap for you. And it's like when I get put on the spot, it's like all my lyrics disappear. It's like, where are you guys? Let me see what I have. Let me look at my phone.
No, absolutely. And in the meantime, I'll go ahead and do the outro. This has been an amazing podcast today with Joel, and being able to sit down and just watch his transition from struggling to coming full circle and starting the process of healing not only himself, but healing with his son, with the mother of his son, and also looking at how things impact the way he kind of joked around or just chided his mom, and how that impacted her, and how he's now shifting that to how he raises his son. So,
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
absolutely.
What if can I play it?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this song here is not finished. Should I give away the secret? Okay, I'm going to give away the secret. So right now I'm working on an album, and this song is not on my album, but I'm working on an album, and I plan on making music for a long time. Whether I become a big artist or not, I don't care. I just want to make music. What I can say though is, so like throughout my music career, I'm going to drop these songs. It's going to be a song where I just rap the whole way through. There's no hook or nothing, no chorus. And they're going to be called channels, because it's like a channeled a message. So this song here is, I think, just inspired by like what I'm going through right now in my life. And also like, I have some like Pokemon references in there because that's what my son's into. So yeah, it's like, this is what I'm going through right now. So I'm going to play this, and it's actually not that long because I haven't finished it. I'm still writing it. Can you hear it on there? That's all I have so far.
Wow. I have to tell you, I closed my eyes and I was listening to it. I literally felt like I was going back into an ayahuasca journey,
Oh, come
and
on.
just know
Thank you.
the music back. So I just have to ask, like, tell me about the sound effects behind it, because that literally resonate with an experience I had at the beginning of my journey. So I'm just curious where those sounds came from and how you put that together with the music, because I literally started to feel like I was going on a journey.
So in regards to the actual music itself and like all the voices in that, I actually had bought this instrumental, this beat from a producer like years ago. I think I actually bought it in 2017, and I had wrote a song to it, and I just found it by accident like a few weeks ago. And it's funny enough, the song that I made that song I actually wrote on the night that my son was born, back in the day, the original version. And it was almost like it was just about the pain that I was feeling about not being able to see my son. I heard that the other day, and I didn't resonate with the message anymore, because again, I was coming from that victim place, but it's cool because that's how I felt in that moment. But I said, you know what? I love this beat. I've always loved this beat. I've always wanted to do something with it. So let me just start writing to it. And yeah, I just started writing to it. And I think that's just kind of where I was at in my life. My son was staying with me at the time because he was off of school. And so I just have like Pokemon cards around the house and stuff like that. But in regards to like the other concepts in the song, I really want to find a way to blend like spirituality into my music, but to not to where it's over the top though, to where it sounds like if you're not Christian and you go listen to a Christian song, most people are not going to want to listen to Christian music because it's over the top. But if you listen maybe to like the stuff like Kanye West is making right now, like he'll put like little Christian references in there, And it's cool because it's not over the top. So for me, I like to put little things like that, or even like mindset or business. And that's why I talk about like manifesting and how I do affirmations and things like that. But I'm really trying to bring like those higher concepts into my music. And I've even one of my ayahuasca ceremonies, I had this song that I was working on, and that's probably one of my favorite songs. And I literally was writing the song in my head in the ceremony, like it was giving me the lyrics. And so a lot of the times, like I kind of just put myself back in that mindset. And that's why I call it channel, like channel one, because that's the first channel I'm going to release. It's because it's like I'm getting those messages, and I'm basically like putting the things that I learned from either ayahuasca or psilocybin into my music.
Thank you so much for coming on. And I think this is a wrap for Father Breaking the Toxic Cycle.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.